right in the kisser.
Hey, how the devil are you? Why are you? Okay, so today I want to talk about what I think and what you think is the most important component in the hi-fi chain. Okay, I will be talking about that in a sec, right? But first, it is the weekend. Way for some. If you work Monday to Friday, woohoo! If you're retired, woohoo! If you're like me and work weekends, boo! But I still like to have a beer on a Friday, okay? And this week's beer of choice is Cwrw Goslas, okay? Goslas is just a place in Carmarthenshire where this beer was first brewed, and Cwrw is just Welsh for beer. So it's Goslas beer. That's all it is. Now this is made in the Glamorgan Brewing Company. That's in Llantrisant. Now it's spelt with two L's. So if you're not from Wales, you pronounce two L's like a, okay? Don't spit on anybody, right? So it's not Llantrisant, it's Llantrisant. There you go. Not far from me, just up the road from me, from Caerphilly, not far, a few miles. And that's where the Royal Mint is. The Royal Mint was put there or moved there from London in the 1960s, I think, to cater for the transition over to decimal. So yeah, that's where they make all the coins, the pound coins, the £2 coins, the 50p's, 10p's, 20p's, all that jazz, okay? There you go. Anyway, this is an amber bitter, 4.3%, malted barley wheat hops. Okay, let's spark it open and have a taste. And if you're someone who hates the sound of gulping, okay, because you're a bit freaky, you better turn off now, right? Or turn away, because I am going to gulp. Cheers. Oh. I tell you something. There was know how to make a beer. I'll give them that. Fair play. And there you go. Very nice. Anyway, on with the video. Okay, so what I'm going to do is count back from 4 to 1. 4 being the least important and 1 being the most important component in the hi-fi chain. Now you may disagree with me, and I'd like to know in the comment section why you disagree and put a rationale behind it rather than you're talking out your ass. Okay. It would be nice to know your reasoning. So give me how you would place them and why. So in at number 4 is the amp and the DAC. You're like, what? You must be having a laugh. No, number 4. Look, before we start, they're all important, okay? They're all important, but I'm putting them what I consider to be the least to the most important. Let's get that straight first. So number 4, I could have done 5, but I put the amp and the DAC together. So the amp and the DAC come in at number 4. No, so, and I'll give them a rationale. So the amp, let's start off with the amp. So the amp just gives you power, okay? It gives you the power to drive your speakers, and your source goes into your amp and out to your speakers, okay? In layman's terms. Now, yeah, there are some things you've got to consider with the amp. Does it have enough power to drive the speakers? Is it powerful enough to fill the room? Etc, etc, yeah. You got these things to consider, okay? The power supply and stuff like that. But in my experience, okay, I'm not talking about a £20 amp from Temu. Let's look at some of the recent Fozzy amps, Yima amps, Duke Audio amps, and comparing them to a £1,000 amp. Yeah, the £1,000 amp is better, okay, a little bit better, but it's not a huge difference, okay? It's not a huge difference. And again, it all depends on the size of your room and things like that. But when I've done these comparisons, there's not a huge amount between them. And when it comes to the DAC, it's the same again. I think it's we're having DACs thrown at us every other week. There's DACs coming out all the time. The world's gone crazy for DACs, okay? And there's only four main DAC chip manufacturers, isn't it, really, right? Cirrus Logic, ESS, AKM, and Burr Brown from Texas Instruments. So, and most of the manufacturers, I would say 90% plus of the manufacturers use one of these DAC chips. Yes, you can argue it's how well it's implemented into the board and the output stage. And true, if it's implemented incorrectly or they use bad components in the output stage, then yeah, it's not going to be as good as, say, a more expensive DAC. But here's the thing, exactly the same with the amps. I find that a lot of DACs don't sound much different to each other. They may have a different sound potentially, but better is debatable. Like I've compared a cheap DAC to a £500 DAC, and there's not a lot of difference, to be fair. And what it is, we're being kind of hoodwinked, I think, by the specs. So I'll give you an example, right? So you get a £1,000 DAC, and the total harmonic distortion is 0.00000000000000001%. Tom and Jerry eyes, you know, right? Wow, that's amazing. That must be fantastic. And the signal to noise ratio is 140 dB. Woo! Okay, wow, yeah, I'm going to get that. And then you compare it to a DAC in a CD player from 1999, okay, or 2000, a 25-year-old CD player. And you can't really tell much of a difference. And what the average CD player from them was about, I think the signal to noise ratio was about 100, 105 dB-ish. Okay, signal to noise ratio 0.03 okay, percent. So a massive difference to these modern DACs. And I think we're having these, you know, on the noise floor, look at the noise floor, oh my God, it's so quiet. But I don't think the human ear can really detect anything THD under the 0.1, 0.01, even people with good ears. So are these measurements worth it anyway when you can't even hear it? You can't even hear the noise floor, signal to noise ratios, because the human hearing can't pick it up. So when it comes to DACs, I think when you're paying more for a DAC, you're not just paying for the better specs, you're paying for maybe it's got better inputs, better outputs, balanced inputs, potentially more inputs. It's got a screen, a volume, a headphone out, a better case, better materials. Okay, it looks nicer. You've got better bragging rights for it than, say, an SMSL SU1. Does the job and does it well, okay, but it's just a DAC. All it's doing is converting digital to analog. The ones and zeros to analog. That's all it's doing, okay. Doesn't look particularly nice. It's a little black box on your top, but it does the job, okay? But you haven't got much bragging rights over it. So that's why I've put the amp and the DAC in at number 4. Right, number 3. Oh, now this could be controversial because some people put this at number 1, and it's the source, okay? Yeah, I know. A lot of people say you put rubbish in, you get rubbish out. But I'll give you my rationale as to why I've put it at number 3. Now, yes, of course, if you put rubbish in, you're going to get rubbish out. I agree with that. But I think most of us are pretty sensible in the source we use. And also, if you look at it like this, okay, yes, okay, if you're going to buy a £30 DVD player to play your CDs, it's going to sound terrible, all right? Not very good at all. They're using some generic DAC in it. It's built terribly. I wouldn't even use it as a doorstop. It's awful. However, if it had a digital out, which I've used before, okay, I've done this before, you've got a coaxial or an optical out. You could connect that to a DAC. The DAC, would all it do is convert them zeros and ones from digital to analog for you. And it would probably sound as good as a £200-300 CD player then, okay? I've done this test and it does, all right? And talking about, say, a £400 CD player, right? Yay, 400 quid. That's going to sound really good, isn't it, right? Compared to that DVD player. Yeah, okay, it will. How does it compare to, say, a £1,500 CD player, £2,000 CD player? I can guarantee it won't be a huge difference in sound. Yeah, the £2,000 CD player, again, it maybe have better connections, better display, you know. Sound-wise, though, debatable whether it's going to be a huge improvement. If you look at streaming, most streaming services now offer high res. So you should be okay with pretty much any streaming service as your source. If you've got a server or a USB stick with your music files stored on there, look, if you're going to store them with MP3s at 128 kilobits per second, then yeah, it's not going to sound great. But if you store them as FLAC, or even better, WAV files, but WAV will take up a lot of space, so you're probably better with FLAC. If you store them as FLAC, you got no issues there, okay? Record players, yeah, okay, you can argue, you know, a better record player does give you better sound, and I agree with that, especially with the phono stage. But again, I've tested lots of phono stages around about the £200-300 mark, not a lot of difference between them, and I've compared them to internal built-in ones in amps, not a lot of difference, okay? But if you're going to buy, again, if you're going to buy a 50 quid turntable, okay, one of them really cheap, nasty ones with them, they all got the same generic platter on them, okay? I think the needle is made out of a paper clip, right?
Oh man, oh God, oh man, oh God.
I would never buy them. Yeah, it's going to sound terrible. But if you spend a little bit of money, you know, maybe upgrade the stylus a little bit, then it's going to sound a lot better. So that's why I've put the source in at number 3. But please let me know where you would put it. Comments below. Right, number 2. Now, number 2 and number 1, I was really umming and ahhing which one to put 1 and 2. So it's very close to number 1 and 2. But number 2 for me, I've decided to put speakers. Now, the reason I've put speakers at number 2, almost number 1, okay, almost number 1, I've reviewed a lot of speakers and auditioned a lot of speakers, okay, and I find you get speaker A and speaker B, there's a vast difference between them. There's a lot of difference between speakers as opposed to amps and DACs. An example would be, I don't know if you can see behind me here, I got the Wharfedale Lintons, and over there I've got the Wharfedale 12.2s. In their price range and category, they're both good speakers, right? But when you compare them, playing them next to each other, the Wharfedale Lintons literally outshine them massively. And the 12.2s are a very decent bookshelf, okay? But in this room, the Lintons just sound so much better. Way better. There's a gulf between them, okay? And this is why I think speakers come in at number 2. Now, I know that there's things to consider when you're buying a speaker. You've got to make sure that the rated power is enough for the amp. Okay, so some speakers are rated. Bookshelves normally 25 to 100. A bigger speaker might be 50 to 200 watts rated amplifier power. So you've got to match the amp to that. Then you've got to look how sensitive the speaker is. If it's not, you know, particularly sensitive, it's got a sensitivity of 85 dB. You might need more power in your amp to drive it, okay? If it's got a sensitivity of 90 dB, it'd be quite relatively easy to drive. The size of your room to consider. It's no point having huge tower speakers if you live in a tiny box room, okay? I mean, you can do it, but just a pair of bookshelves would be fine. Is it near field listening? Is it far field listening? So these are all factors you've got to consider, and this is why I've put speakers in at number 2, almost number 1. OMG, you didn't even mention ohms. What if it's a 4-ohm speaker? You're so stupid. You wait till I tell my mother. I would always say with speakers though, more so over than amplifiers, you should always go and audition them. I know they're not going to sound the same in your room as they are when you audition them in these treated rooms, in these hi-fi shops, but it's still worth going and comparing speakers to see which one you like. But in my experience, and I have auditioned and listened to a lot of speakers, and that's where you find huge differences. An example would be, so Wharfedale tend to be a little bit more laid back, a little bit more rolled off at the top, okay? And I like that sound. Whereas B&W and Klipsch, they may be a bit, you know, trebly for me, okay? Some people love them. Oh, I love that. Oh, I really like that stuff. Oh, I like the sound of it. So it's horses for courses, isn't it? Other people like a really flat frequency response. I don't. I want my speaker to be a bit colourful, to be a bit exciting, a bit, you know, rather than just a flat frequency response. I don't like it. So these are all things you need to consider when you're buying a speaker. And this is why I've put speakers in at number 2. And number 1. It's your room, okay? What? The room? You're having a laugh, aren't you? Right? No, your room is really important. If you've got bad acoustics in your room, you could have thousands upon thousands of pounds worth of equipment and it'll just get ruined by the reverb. So a lot of people confuse reverberation and echoes. An echo is kind of like, oi, 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 oi. Where a reverb is, oi, 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 just bouncing off many things, okay? And bouncing off each other, back off walls and things like that, right? So if you've got a lot of reverb in your room, it doesn't matter how much you spent on your equipment, it's going to sound blinking awful. Now, ideally, I'd like to treat this room more, but I can't. It's a shared room. I think I mentioned this before. If I had my own perfect listening room, it would have shag pile carpets, a lot of soft furnishings, heavy curtains, treatment on the walls and things like that. So it's always best to look at your room. So if your room's got very high ceilings, bare walls, glass table, tiled floor, okay, you are going to get a lot of reverb. Or if you've got odd shaped ceilings as well, sometimes they're sloped, there might be an alcove somewhere. You should look into doing some type of acoustic treatment on it. I mean, I've done the best I can here, but I don't have my own room. This is a shared room, the family use it as well. I'd love to put curtains up here. I do close the blinds so the glass is not exposed when I'm listening, so I don't get reverb off the glass. But I'd like to have curtains up there. I have put a rug down, a mat down, just to try and suck up some of those reverberations. And I've got some treatment on the wall here. Yeah, so your room is very important. So you can do the clap test if you want. And again, this room is not great, look. Now, it's not that bad. With the improvements I've made, it's kind of, you know, made it less. It's more than listenable. It's fine, okay? But I would like it better. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And again, what order would you put this in, okay? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next one.